All right, Stuart, we're here ready to dig into your first episode.
Let's do it.
Of your podcast. I want to talk about, in our intro, you talked about your experience with your father, your uncle, twin brothers, started in the industry. Give us a little bit of background, and maybe specifically, in one of your last seminars, I was able to be there and listen to it, and you told the story, the call that you got in the lunch that you went to with your dad and how he had a stroke.
Heart attack.
Maybe give our listeners a backstory to that, because I think it really tells how you approach your retirement planning and how you help families, because you've been through some pretty difficult circumstances. So give us your backstory and tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, as I had mentioned, I grew up in the financial services business, and you had the story, the concept, right? I mean, I wasn't right there at the breakfast with him when he passed away, but one of the things I talk about when I do public speaking is, I ask everybody to close their eyes and just imagine a time in your life when something happened to you that was so profound and so life-changing that it is something that is so indelible in your heart and, really motivates you and inspires you to do what you do. And, that time for me was October 18th, 1985. And 2 days prior to that, my father called me, and, I was a sophomore at Penn State where I went to college, and my dad called me. He said, "Stu, what are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm going to class." He's like, "Forget class, come on home, I miss you." So he didn't have to ask me twice. I got in my car. I drove 180 miles from State College, Pennsylvania, to the suburbs of Philadelphia, which is where I was born and raised. And my father said to me, "Then, Stu, meet me tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock at Jaime's." There were two Jewish delicatessens near where I grew up, Jaime's and Murray's. And so he said, "Meet me at Jaime's at 10 o'clock. I walk in at 10 o'clock, and I go to give my dad a kiss hello, and I smell smoke. My dad was a cigarette smoker. And what you need to know is that my dad just had a quadruple bypass at the Cleveland Clinic 5 months prior to this breakfast that we were having."
Wow.
So I said, "Dad, you just had a quadruple bypass. I can't believe you're still smoking." He goes, "I'm not smoking." I said, "I smell the smoke. I'm a non-smoker. I can tell you were smoking." And of course, he denies it, and he says, "Sit down." He says, So I sit down in the booth, and I said, "What are you having for breakfast here?" And my dad, 46 years old, looks at me like a child, and he says, "I have a new favorite sandwich. It's the greatest sandwich in the world." I said to myself, "I can't wait to hear this." I said, "Tell me about the sandwich." He's like, "Literally, this is the greatest sandwich in the world, like he just invented it." I said, "Please tell me what you're going to order." He said, "A grilled cheese and bacon." And he goes, "With a tomato." I said, "Look, I'll give you the tomato, but there is nothing good about a grilled cheese and bacon." Okay, the bread,
So funny.
the butter, the cheese, the bacon. I mean, obviously, the only thing healthy on there is obviously the tomato. So anyway, we proceed to have breakfast, and the next day, my father went to a business dinner. Like I said, he was in the same business that I'm in as a financial advisor. He met with a client, with my stepmother. He comes home from dinner, and we're in the midst of a conversation. And my dad, in the midst of that conversation with me, has a massive heart attack. My stepmother comes downstairs and tried to give him CPR. I called 911. My brother came downstairs, and unfortunately, my father did not make it. And that was a life-changing event that, was forever indelible in my heart. And I'm grateful, that my dad did call me, and I have the story to tell, because, had he not called me and said, "Come on home, I miss you," I would have probably gotten that call and have been frantically driving, 3.5 hours and not had, these final moments with him and this story to tell. So anyway, I'm grateful for that for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. That's got to leave a lasting impression. Now, I think when I heard you tell that story the first time, I thought it was an impactful story. And yet I sat there and I looked at some of the people that were there in attendance to the seminar, and I thought, none of us know when that moment could be. We don't know. I mean, it's hard to fully plan for something like that. You can try and financially plan. Maybe it's really hard to plan emotionally for those types of things. But now it's been your life mission to help families, particularly retired couples, to be able to not avoid all those scenarios. Life happens. We all know that. But it could go one of two ways from that point on, being totally ready and prepared for it, or it devastating the family legacy and so on and so forth. So explain now because I think there is a lot of things that retirees don't miss. You use the analogy of coming down Mount Everest. More deaths happen on the way down. More retirement deaths happen in retirement when there are unplanned for situations that occur. So talk about that a little bit and explain real specifically how you guys kind of help to protect against some of those circumstances.
Well, let's take a step back for a second. First of all, we work with retirees and pre-retirees, right? Retirement is different, has a different definition to everybody, right? There are people that, that retire when they're 50 years old, and we're 52, we're 48, or 60, 65, 70. So really when, to kind of set the stage, there's really only three things that can happen to you, me, and everybody listening to this during the course of our lifetimes. And that's either live too long, die too soon, or become disabled. Okay? And if you live too long, we want to make sure that our clients have been diligent enough to save enough money to make good decisions along the way while they are climbing the proverbial mountain, the accumulation stage. If they die too soon, we want to make sure that our clients are planning to make sure that the loved ones that they leave behind, okay, are going to be taken care of. Because usually when somebody passes away, mom or dad, husband or wife, it usually creates some financial challenges. We want to be proactive and address those financial challenges so that if somebody dies prematurely, because look, nobody has a lease on life, we just don't know that their family, their loved ones are going to be taken care of. Or there's a plan if, they're a business owner that, your wife is not going to be partners, with your partner. I mean, we want to make sure that we're taking care of all those things. And the third thing is if you become disabled, right?
Right.
And again, for our clients that are now in their later years, long-term care is always a big concern. Nobody wants to pay for long-term care. Nobody minds having long-term care. But this is another way that devastates families if somebody should ever need home health care, assisted living, or, nursing home, or whatever kind of care it is. So live too long, die too soon, or become disabled. These are the areas that we want to address with our clients in a very high level, and to make our clients and the people that we cross paths with, to make them aware of these different issues and show them how they can make better decisions with their money, to get financially organized so they can make better decisions with their money.
So on that note, let's talk a little bit about some of the common pitfalls that you see in those areas, right? Again, we go back to the analogy of coming down Mount Everest and helping people ideally plan ahead before they start their descent.
Yeah.
But so with that in mind, what are some of the biggest pitfalls you see in the area of living too long, dying too soon, and long-term care that you see people making that regularly you guys are helping to solve?
Well, again, one of the, areas that most financial advisors are not talking about is what's called sequence of returns risk.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time educating our clients who are now either close to the top of the financial mountain, or they're at the top looking over the edge about to start their descent. And if somebody at that stage of life doesn't understand sequence of returns, they need to do that. Now, let me explain, okay? So I don't want to get lost in the math, but I'll try to keep it as simple and straightforward as possible. If somebody has $1 million and they want to live on $50,000 a year from that $1 million, which represents a 5% withdrawal rate, right? $1 million, take out 5% a year, that's $50,000 a year. So let's just say first year, you're now on your way down the mountain. Let's say that the stock market, the S&P 500, and the market goes down 30%. You think that can happen? Of course it could happen.
Yeah, it's
now
happened
your $1 million
plenty of
is now worth $700,000. You need to withdraw $50,000 to live and enjoy the money. Now you have $650,000. Let's say year 2 comes. You lose 20%. Your $650,000 is now worth $520,000. You withdraw $50,000 to live and enjoy your money. Now you have $470,000. You're now 2 years into retirement. Your $1 million is now worth $470,000. You are in trouble. So if early on in your retirement years, when you start your descent down the financial mountain and the market does not cooperate, meaning it doesn't go up.
Which, by the way, we can't control. So you better be prepared.
Really good at what I do, but I don't control the markets.
Yeah.
Markets go up and markets go down. So sequence of returns, the order in which these returns occur, is what really gets people in trouble. And again, the financial services industry has created these products today and these vehicles today that allow people to have growth with protection. So if you think about climbing a mountain, did you ever see any of these men and women who do rock climbing or mountain climbing? If you have, you probably noticed they have a rope in between their legs.
Yeah.
Do you know why they have the rope?
Protection.
Protection, just in case they fall. Do you think any sane individual would attempt to climb a big mountain without a rope in between their legs? I said sane because there's plenty of insane people. But if they have their head with them, of course they would not attempt to climb a mountain without a rope in between their legs for protection. And we ask clients the same thing. Why don't you add some protection to your portfolio? And look, 36 years in business, I just believe very strongly, better to have protection and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah.
It exists out there. And again, it's really just about educating people. And no, it is not one size fits all. It's just about understanding where our clients are, what their goals are, and what they need to do to make sure that their portfolio is set up so that that no matter what happens, they are going to be financially okay, and their spouse will be financially okay regardless of what happens. And really, that's the ultimate of, the relationship that we enter with our clients. That's what people look to us, to be able to help coach them and guide them and be that proverbial Sherpa that helps our clients to safely get down the financial mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's the job that we apply for every day with our clients to, help them to do just that.
Yeah, I think that's critical. I mean, again, you can't change the unknowns. They're going to happen. Maybe last question for this episode, and that is for those that are listening, if they're saying, yeah, well, Stuart, I agree with all of that. That makes perfect sense. What do I do now? What's the next step? Like, if I'm about to retire, or I'm now in retirement, or I'm 10 years out from retirement, what should the thing that I do be? What's my next step to ensure that I'm at least started down this path? And I know there's a million different things and strategies, and that's what you guys help them navigate. But what's the next step? What can they take away from this episode and be like, yes, I need to go do that?
I mean, look, the financial services industry, has become very commoditized. And look, people don't know what they don't know, right? And look, the stock market, as we sit here today in November 2024, leading up to our election tomorrow, federal election tomorrow, November 5th, is just unknowable what the future is. And because people don't know what they don't know, I would just suggest that they get advice from a competent professional who's been there before. Our clients, one at a time, retire one time. And we tell our clients all the time, you want to make sure you retire and stay retired. And if you want to go back to work, go back to work. But make no mistake, you're going back to work because you want to, not because you have to.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's a lot easier to get out of bed every day on a cold winter day because you just love what you do. And you're doing it for the love of the game because you love what you do, who you're doing it with, or who you're doing it for. But to get out of bed and work because you have to, that's a whole different story. So we want to set up our clients so that work becomes an optional thing at some point in time in the future. And I don't care if they're retiring at age 50, 55, 60, 65, or 70. It's just a matter of having that plan. So to answer your question, it's, we're more than happy to talk to and counsel and jump on a Zoom call or, whatever it is, have an initial telephone call to understand, somebody's situation, their goals. If this is an existing client that's listening to our program, of course, we set up periodic reviews with our clients to make sure that we're checking in and that things are they should be because things change, circumstances change, and we want to make sure that we're on top of that for our clients and those people that we're hoping to do business with one day.
Awesome. Well, thank you for those tuning in to listen. Give us a follow, like this episode so that we can continue to pull out great content for you guys with Stuart Spivak.